So the topic today is the most important Hunnic find in Europe, actually. The largest find, the largest hoard, gold hoard in Europe. There are quite a lot of pieces. I wrote 250, but there are many smaller pieces, fragments of gold sheet, for example. So there are many more, probably. It has been found in 1926 near Szeged, which is here in the middle of the Puszta. In the middle of the Puszta, in the plain where the Huns had their ordos. You know what the ordos is? The camp of the Huns, where they had the capital, actually. So it has a quite interesting story. It was an adventure, actually, because there was a lady digging in the orchard for potatoes and onions and whatever, and she found this. And she thought, if you look at it, if we look at it, I suppose we all know it is a turquoise. But she didn't. And she thought it was a piece of brass. Do you know what brass is? Copper and zinc. She thought it was a simple rod. So she took a hammer and straightened it, made a stick out of it, and gave it to her son to go out with the pigs. Seriously. So the boy went out with the pigs, as you can see, and was playing in the grass, of course, and he lost it. He lost his golden stick. And then the peasant came, a man on a tractor, going up and down, and he found it. And he thought, fine, a brass rod, I can repair my tractor. But then he realized it was a bit too soft. So he was not sure about it, and he went to a jeweler in Szeged, in the town, the nearest town. This is the museum where the pieces are now. The director at the time was Ferenc Mora, and the museum is now called Mora Museum as well. So he saw this turquoise, and he was quite excited and went immediately to Nagyszekcsas, it's the name of the place, and had organized immediately an emergency excavation. And he found 250 pieces of gold. As you can see, not only gold, but also precious stones, almandines and so on. So it was quite a lot of work. What was interesting is that all these pieces are burned. Oh yeah, and he also looked around and asked the people there in the village, and they said, yes, we have found several of these pieces, and the children normally get a piece of pumpkin pie if they bring one of these. So a lot of these pieces have disappeared. We don't know where they are. Probably in some museums all over the world, actually. I've seen this one, for example, in the Metropolitan Museum in New York. If you look at it, it looks really very, very similar to several of the pieces, and in particular to one of them, which I remember very well. It looks more or less like this. You can see it is broken. There is some piece of gold sheet there where it was attached, and there is some silver here on the buckle. Well, who knows? It's difficult to say if it really belongs to the hoard, but it looks very, very suspicious to me. So, what was it? As I said, these pieces have been burned. It is quite clear you can see the part of some pieces have remains of some burnt material. There is a lot of silver in here, inside, in some of the pieces, which were molten nails. Nails. So the gold was fixed on leather with nails, with silver nails. And silver, particularly alloyed silver, mixed with copper and probably brass or something, has a lower melting point than gold, of course. So the silver has molten, but not the gold. So, as you can see, there was no body. They couldn't find a body in that place. There were all these pieces of gold, these offerings. It was clear that they had been burnt on a pyre, most probably on a funerary pyre. But they couldn't find the body. And this is normal with Hunnic burials. When they had a lot of offerings, as in this case, they burnt the offerings on a pyre in one place, but they buried the body elsewhere, in another place, in a different place, of course with some pieces, some ornaments or whatever, and they did not want the grave to be found. So they, more or less, it was hidden, the real grave, and the offerings, which you see here, they were also hidden, but in a different place. So, yeah, who was it? Well, one of the Hungarian scholars who studied the pieces first said that he could find on this finial, it's a finial of a leather strip. These are not jewels. None of it is a jewel. Perhaps this piece here, this was interpreted as a piece of a crown, kind of crown. But I don't believe it. I'll show you afterwards why. So all these pieces belong to equipment, yes. Horse fittings, whatever, ornaments of the horse anywhere. So this is a finial of a whatever leather strip, and he could see here these scratches. He said it is a rune, this one, and it is the name of King Uptar. I don't know if it is true, but it is a possibility, of course. Uptar was, you know, maybe that the Huns always had two kings. One stayed at home, and the other one went to war. So this Uptar was the king who went to war and was killed and brought back to the Ordos, to the camp, to the capital, more or less. So he was the king together with Rua or Rugila. They were brothers, and he was also the uncle of King Attila, or Attila, as you say. The Hungarians say Attila, so whatever you prefer. And Uptar was killed in 430 near the river Rhine in Germany. Mm-hmm. So he must have been brought back to the Ordos. He was killed by the Burgundians, of course. And nobody knows where the body is, where the real grave is, of course. Ruas and Rugila were the brothers of the father of Attila, his name was Munzik. Maybe you remember. So we have to find the graves as well, not only the offerings. So, as I said, the pieces have been burnt on a ceremonial pyre. It is quite clear. I'll show you some other pieces with molten parts. And I analyzed them some years ago. I analyzed about 200 pieces of the hoard, non-destructively, of course. I couldn't take samples. And I used X-ray fluorescence as a method. And before analyzing them, of course, I checked all of them with a microscope to see if I could find some interesting detail. So what I can say immediately, I'm not going into many details, you could distinguish very clearly different groups. But most of the objects, particularly the objects which belong to the Hunnic tradition, were made of very pure gold. So we have, you cannot read the numbers, I suppose. Can you read the numbers? It's a bit difficult. This is 90%. So this is, the last one is 100%, and the lowest one is 80%. So it's a very good gold. And the additions to this part of the hoard, between 80 and 90%, broadly, let's say that, the alloy is with silver and some copper, because gold is very soft, as you know. You remember the turquoise. It was too soft to repair the tractor. He couldn't do it. So they had to add silver and copper to make it stronger. And that's the difference I could find. So most of the pieces which contain the higher amount of silver and copper belong to the Alanic tradition. I'm going to show you afterwards. The pieces with the highest, the purest gold are the Hunnic ones, and in between are the Germanic, the typical Germanic finds. Why is that? Because the Huns always received a lot of gold coins from the Romans. The Romans were paying the Huns, first of all, because sometimes they were being mercenaries, but also to keep them there. So they gave them a lot of gold every year, but it was much less than what would have lost if the Huns had come, as we have seen afterwards when they destroyed half of northern Italy. Okay, this is an example. This is a Nogayka of the king, of course. This was the setting of a stone, a big stone, which is lost. They didn't find it. It was at the end of the Nogayka, and these parts were gold strips along the leather of the Nogayka. So as you can see, the stone setting, which has to be stronger because it is a part which is more prone to wear. You put it down, maybe you hit something, whatever. So it contains around 8% of silver and copper to be stronger, to be harder, while the bands, which have to be soft, to be hammered, contain only 4.5% of silver. So only 6 objects contain over 10% of silver, and these they belong to these are the pieces, and they belong to the Germanic kind of objects. Why do they contain more silver and copper, because these are the parts where the leather strips went in three or four different directions. So they had to be stronger. They had to keep the leather as well. And if you look at it, you can see here the remains of silver inside, because the nail was made of silver. The nail which fixed them on the leather. You see one here. This is the nail. It is the top of the nail, and it has the shape of this ornament, which is similar to this one. I would like you to remember this shape, because we are going to see it afterwards on a very different, in different contexts. So you see the nail, the silver nail, the molten ones here, and this explains why there is so much silver droplets. There are droplets of silver on the gold. However, there were, here you see it, the droplets. This is silver at the back of one of these ornaments. These are smaller droplets. You see them there as well, and here it's quite clear. However, there were also plates of silver, real big plates of silver, but they are completely molten. I found just crushed silver and molten, completely molten. Good quality silver, actually. I suppose these were also, because of the composition of the silver, they were also Roman plates, maybe taken by the Huns at some excursion of the Romans into the Roman territory or whatever. But yeah, we don't know. So we can distinguish different techniques and different typologies. There were very heavy cast gold objects with flat precious stones inlaid, which we have seen. Then we have these gold plates, rectangular gold plates with rectangular stones as well. Very thin gold strips which are inlaid with round stones, and I'm going to show them now. And a lot of pieces of gold sheet decorated by repoussé. Do you know what repoussé means? No. You have a sheet of gold, a thin sheet of gold, and you work it from the back to get a shape. Like, for example, the decorations on Scythian swords, for example, where you have figures on the gold. This is the repoussé. The name is repoussé. It's a French word which is used in all languages, more or less. Okay, so this would be the Germanic production. You can see this geometric pattern with triangles and with almandines. The stones are almandines. They belong to the granite group of precious stones, and they are cut in small plates, tiny platelets. You see them here. It's all decorations of horse fittings, all of them. So these are the Hunnic products, and these are these are not buckles of a belt, because they are like this. The biggest one is this one, is really this big. It's extremely heavy. It's a lot of gold. And the other ones are also heavy. They are a bit smaller, but not much smaller. So it's a very, very heavy kind of taste also. They liked it like this. And I had all this gold from the solidi, the coins, solidi of the Romans, were very pure gold, 99% of purity, sometimes 99, whatever. So a really good gold. And this is the gold of the coins, for sure, because it is very, very pure. And they also used the almandines, the precious stones you see here, but they are larger than on the Germanic pieces. And they are cut in different ways. They have different shapes. You see these rounded shapes. They are less geometric, no triangle, but some rounded shape as well, and large. They like it large. Me too, actually. Okay, these are the plates. The plates I was telling you about. So people thought they are part of a diadem, but look at them. They are all different. It's not logical. You wouldn't want a diadem with plates of a different size. So, you know. It's quite interesting also how the precious stones have been worked. Here they are, all of them are a sort of cabochon. Cabochon means rounded and elongated as well. So it's quite an interesting way of working. They are all granites, apparently, so almandines, as you prefer. But some of them look like glass because they have bubbles inside. And some of them look almost violet, so I thought it was amethyst. But apparently they are all garnets. And you can see the burnt piece there. It is really burnt in the middle. It was on a very hot place, and the silver on top. And this is also silver. We have very different kinds of stone settings, like these. These are soldered on the plate and all in one, so it's not a strip. It has been worked like this with a hammer. While these ones, which are, I'm telling you now, these are Alanic pieces made by Alans. You can see the join. You cannot see them here. It's one of the ways to distinguish them. So these are the Alanic tradition. The details I showed you are from these pieces here. So you see, it is a plate, a thinner plate, which contains more silver and copper than the other ones. These are the pieces with the highest additions of copper and silver. The gold also looks paler. It is less yellow, of course, because of the addition. And the stones are not almandines. They are more or less chalcedony. They all belong to the chalcedony group. So you have all sorts of colors, actually, different colors. They are white here because they have been burnt. They were on the pyre and they lost the color. But they had different colors. They were green probably and blue originally. And these are also very typical ornaments for example, fabric, some kind of drape they were putting on the horse. And these are the ornaments, very typical for the Alanic style, the Alanic tradition. We also have different technological details, like the wire. The gold wire is made in different ways. This is the Germanic way, which is also Roman actually. You have the wire and you have a small tool which you use on a surface, on marble normally, in Roman times for example, and you pull it on the gold wire, which must be thick, on a gold rod, to get this shape. In this case, it has been stamped with a punch, probably, a small one. This one is done in a different way again. It It also belongs to the Germanic kind of technology, and that one is the Alanic way, and it is not a real gold wire. You call it pearl wire, don't you? You can see it has been stamped. The entire rod has been stamped in once. Okay. This cup was found together with a hoard, and originally had probably inlays in the holes, probably glass. It's a very pure gold as well, but it belongs to the Sassanid Persian tradition. You can see there some Persian examples, Iranian examples. They were all decorated with with glass or with precious stones, depending on how much money the owner had, of course. It is not strange that there were Persian pieces together with these Hunnic and Germanic and Alanic pieces, because there were also Persians together with these so-called Hunnic group. It was not just Huns, there were a lot of other people together with the Huns. This is a famous piece, maybe you have seen it. It is in Stuttgart now in the museum. It was found at Wolfsheim near Wiesbaden, and it is the lid of a box actually, but it is Persian, and this man, it was a warrior who was fighting together with the Huns, used it as a necklace together with this kind of turquoise, and he wrote his name on it, Artaxshatar. So it was a typical Persian name, and this is now in the museum in Stuttgart. You can see the kind of objects here. These are Hunnic objects, but this is not. This is exactly the same technique of the cup. Yes, as an example, a comparison, I'm showing you this hoard found at Untersiebenbrunn in Austria. It's near the border to Hungary, but still in Austria. And you see these pieces here are exactly the same like the Alanic pieces I showed you before, and this is also typical Alanic, this kind of appliques, what you put on fabric, on some kind of drape or whatever they put on the horse. What I would like to point out is also this. It is a mirror, a typical Hunnic mirror. The Huns had this. It's very small, like this only. This is another one which I have analyzed in Budapest. It looks like exactly the same. It is the back, of course. This is the back, and it is polished on the other side. It is copper containing a lot of tin, over 30% of tin. So it looks silvery, like silver. But it is very fragile. If you drop it on the floor, on a stone floor, it breaks. And you see it's broken. That one is broken. I think this one is broken too. The other typical element is this. These are cicadas. How do you say cicada in Russian?
Cicada.
Exactly. So these are cicadas, and you see those. These are the typical ornaments of Huns found in different places in Hungary, and this is made of silver. It's also a cicada, but a small one, which was found in Slovenia, near Ljubljana, when the Huns arrived, of course. I'm sure you know these pieces, the huge, really big cauldrons of the Huns, which are found all over the place, from Xinjiang in China to Europe, wherever. Even in France, in Italy, we have them. Of course, in Germany, in Austria, in wherever the Huns arrived. So they use these all the time. And you see the typical deformation of the head. They used to bind the head of children to get the shape. They thought it was pretty, probably. So it can be very elongated like this one, or less elongated, only a bit elongated like the other one. They began late probably to do that, but it's very typical of the Huns, but also of the Goths. The Goths did the same. I don't know who was copying from the other. Most probably the Goths were copying from the Huns, I suppose. But you find that also in Gothic graves in Italy, for example, or in Austria, in Hungary. Okay. We also have a lot of finds from India and Persia in the Ordos. The Ordos in Hungary, in the Pusta. I'm talking about that Ordos. So, for example, the coins, Indian coins of King Kumaragupta, we are in the middle of the period. Sasanian coins as well. They have been found in Hungary, in the Ordos, and Kushan coins of the Shah Kidara as well. So it was a very, very mixed population on one side, but also it reflects the places where the Huns were, and it also shows that they were still in communication. They had contacts with Hunnic populations which were in other places. I'm showing you this is the a very famous find from Boma in Xinjiang in China, and you see the shape which I showed you before. It's the same kind of taste. They liked it like this. The way to cut the stones, it's the same. And you see also this vessel, cup, whatever it is, with stones. This one actually has precious stones in it. And it is gold with precious stones all over, and almandines, of course. Where did they come from? We don't know exactly, but for a while it has been thought that the Huns were the Xiongnu. I'm going around here. Okay, this is the Xiongnu territory in China. The Chinese actually built the wall, the famous Chinese wall, because of the Huns, because they were coming into China and destroying stuff and stealing whatever. So they built the wall, and it didn't help a lot. They even had an Ordos here between the two walls. So you know, this was around 158 BC. They moved then down to Central Asia, to all these places. This is Boma, where the gold mask has been found. Kashgar, Samarkanda, and so on. They were here. They founded this Yueban kingdom between the rivers, and were there between 166 to 480, about that. They also came down to Pakistan and India. They found it here. These are the white Huns. They are called the white Huns. There are also red Huns. And they invaded India as well, the Gupta Empire. And then they went up through Persia, went through here everywhere, taking with them Alans, Sarmatians, Goths, whatever, Utrigurs, Kutrigurs, and so on, skiers, and went down to Hungary, where they stopped. They stopped in Hungary for a long time, and then they came over to Italy, for example. The explanation for this very long migration is the Black Death, the pest. They were running away from the pest, but they didn't manage to run away. They brought it actually to Europe. So, as I said, the finds from Natchez reflect the different groups of people, the different technologies. It can all be distinguished. It was quite an interesting job for me. Modern research, not only mine but other people's research, showed that there were a lot of people in this group running away from the pest, actually. So Scythians, the Xiongnu, of course, as well. Huns, Avars, they came a bit later, Khazars, Cumans, and so on. In Hungary, you even can find the place where the Cumans were. The Huns were there, the Cumans were there, and so on. So it's quite clear. So ethnically, there were different groups, and they spoke different languages as well. And it is quite a unique phenomenon which involves China, from China to Europe, everything, up to France, where they had the last battle at the fields against Aetius.
As I remember, Castle fields, something like that.
Catavelaunic fields.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes, Catavelaunic fields against Aetius. Yeah, and yeah, that was the end actually of the Huns, because Attila had killed his brother, so there was no king in the Ordos, and they could be taken over by other people. So they became mercenaries for other people, fighting with the Romans, against the Romans, with whatever, and they disappeared like this. But you can still see in Hungary, you can still see in some places, particularly in the Puszta, you can still see the similar faces. Seriously, yes, it's quite interesting of the people. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. That was great.
Questions? If
yes,
there are questions.
Speaking about the tradition to make a fire, to maybe
To the pyre, you mean the pyre?
Yeah,
funerary pyre.
A funerary pyre in one place and make a cemetery or whatever. In distance, it is well-known tradition. Yeah, we know.
Yes.
And how long is this distance between?
Good question. Do we know? We don't know.
Okay.
We didn't find many graves, and I don't think that the king was buried in a cemetery. I think he was buried elsewhere, in a hidden place. For example, we don't know where Attila is. We know that they moved the river and dug the grave in the bed of the river, and then they put the river back. It was customary. They did it all the time. For example, also Alaric in southern Italy. He died in Calabria, in southern Italy. And it is well known that they moved the river Busento in Calabria to dig the grave of the king, and they put it back afterwards, but nobody knows where, and the river is relatively long, so difficult to find. Yes. You.
I want to ask. So, you thought that there was nobody in the grave with gold. There was but some scripts about king, Hungarian king. And he told that there is some, like, people think that this king was dead near Rhine River in Germany.
Yes.
And my question is if there were some excavation in this area to find this Hungarian king.
In which area? In Hungary? Or-
In Rhine.
Oh, no, no. I mean, yes, but we know that he was killed near the river Rhine because of ancient literature. Jordanes tells the story. He says King Gupta was killed near the river Rhine, and I think he also says that he was brought back. The body was brought back, and it is something which they used to do. They didn't leave the king there. They took him back to the Ordos, wherever near the Ordos, wherever.
Thank you.
Okay.